look forward to further stages of this debate. Thank you, sir.
I call Chris Bishop.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Pleasure to take a call on this bill. And the Minister has outlined in quite some detail for the House the various technical measures that the bill does. And it's a good bill. And I just want to, in my remarks, address 4 points to add to what the Minister has said. The first is just to respond to what has just come before from Michael Wood about the volume of legislation, or the volume of tax legislation that the House is considering. And this has, I've got to say, been a puzzling theme of Labor members' remarks on tax bills recently, because the New Zealand Parliament does not actually sit that much, as Sir Geoffrey Palmer has pointed out most recently. The New Zealand Parliament does not sit that much. Our select committees do not sit that much. And actually, the job of the Finance and Expenditure Committee, which I have the great privilege to chair, the job of our committee is to examine bills put before the Parliament by the government. And actually, there is nothing more constitutionally important than the proper scrutiny by Parliament of the appropriations that the government wishes to raise and obviously raise through revenue and through the taxation system. And so I find the complaints about the volume of legislation a bit strange, because the Labor Party called for the Schuin inquiry into the taxation system after the Mossack Fonseca issue was raised. We had the inquiry, and then the government very quickly legislated. So they can't be complaining about that piece of legislation. The Labor Party spends, and the Green Party, have spent a lot of time talking about so-called multinational company tax evasion and profit shifting and things like that. And actually, there is a reasonable amount of agreement on that across the House, and the government is acting. There's been legislation, or parts of legislation, to do with that, so we've legislated in relation to that, or at least started the process of it. And then another piece of legislation that's come before the House recently is to do with making it easier for small businesses to pay provisional tax. And actually, the Labor Party likes to stand up all the time and claim that that's their policy. So when the government introduced a bill to give effect to that, they can't really complain about that. So I'm just left puzzling. What is the Labor Party's complaint about the volume of tax legislation, other than the fact they don't want to do any work? So that's the first point. That's the first point. That was my crescendo to that point. The second point is to praise the Minister's SOP about the effect of Kaikoura earthquakes, making sure that we don't confer any unexpected tax liability on businesses affected by that. So I just want to say that is a strong move, and I know that my good colleague Stuart Smith, the MP for Kaikoura, says to me it's an excellent move, and if he takes a call, I'm sure he will praise it to the ends as well. The third point I want to make is, again, just to respond to Michael Wood about this idea that this bill is a missed opportunity, because the Labor Party likes to say this quite a bit about tax legislation as well. It's been a constant theme running through their speeches most recently. And they always say we need a fundamental review of the tax system. OK, don't really agree, but fair enough. And it needs to be fairer, more progressive and modern. Well, we are modernising the tax system, and I think there's actually a degree of cross-party consensus on that. And we're putting through the business transformation program through the IRD. So what does fair and more progressive mean? Actually, what they mean by that is higher taxes and new taxes. That's what they mean. They just don't want to say so, because that's what you do when you're in opposition, when you don't want to promise something you know won't be popular, so you do a review, or at least you promise a review, and you say the right things in order to give effect, in order to give the indication that you're tilting one way or the other. So it can't be capital gains taxes, because Grant Robertson and Andrew Little ruled that out, and they keep ruling it out. So we know that it will mean higher taxes. And actually, the Labor Party should be upfront with New Zealanders about their policy, rather than just saying we want to do a review to make it more fairer and more progressive. Tell us what that actually means.
We're on this bill.
Very, very good, Sir. Thank you. I acknowledge that. The fourth point I want to make is the third point was about the missed opportunity that you claim this bill is. The fourth point is about the bill's addition to the schedule of the Income Tax Act in relation to charitable in relation to giving charities tax relief. And I got to say, I do have to say that it is ridiculous that we have to legislate in order to confer tax benefits on a particular subset of charities. And I've said this before in the Parliament. I think there has got to be a simpler way of adding charities to the list that is subject to income tax relief and giving them tax relief. And there has got to be an easier way of removing the charities that are not subject to it anymore. For example, in reading the background to the bill, there's a particular trust, I think it's some trust in Auckland, that has been wound up and therefore is no longer eligible to be classed as a charity for the purposes of tax. Now, there has got to be a better way for Parliament to deal with these sort of organisations than every year having the IRD having to collate through the system all the charities that should be added to the list and all the charities that should be removed from the list. There has got to be a simpler way, whether it's by ministerial fiat or whether or not it's by the officials doing it or something. I just make that point again, that I think we have got to get a better way of doing that, and I just think it's silly that we have to keep turning up in Parliament every year to do this. So with those 4 remarks on this very important piece of legislation, I commend it to the House.
I call Grant Roberts.
Thank you very much, Mr.